I was sitting at my kitchen table with my morning coffee when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. I smiled, expecting her usual good morning message, or maybe a photo of her garden. Instead, what I read made my hands shake so badly I nearly dropped the phone. "We've agreed you're no longer part of the family. Don't come to any gatherings." My sister liked the message. I replied, "Thanks for confirming. I'll cancel all the auto payments." I read it 3 times, each word cutting deeper than the last. My own mother, the woman who had raised me, who had taught me to ride a bike, who had stayed up with me through countless childhood illnesses. She was cutting me out of the family with the cold efficiency of canceling a subscription service. My name is David, and I'm 58 years old. I thought by this age I'd have life figured out. I thought family bonds were unbreakable. I was wrong. The whole thing had started 6 months earlier at my nephew's graduation party. It was a beautiful June afternoon, the kind where the sun feels like a blessing rather than a burden. My sister Rachel had gone all out with the celebration. There were balloons everywhere, a catering table loaded with food, and relatives I hadn't seen in years. I was genuinely happy to be there. My nephew Marcus had worked hard to graduate from college, the first in our family to do so. I was proud of him. I had even brought a generous check as a gift, money I had saved specifically for this occasion. The trouble started when my mother pulled me aside near the dessert table. She was 79 years old, still sharp as ever. With silver hair she wore in a neat bun and eyes that missed nothing. "David, we need to talk about your contribution to your father's medical expenses," she said, her voice low but firm. My father had passed away 2 years earlier after a long battle with heart disease. The medical bills had been substantial, and the family had agreed to split them. I had paid my share, every single dollar, even though it had drained my savings account. "Mom, I paid everything we agreed on," I said, confused. "I sent you the checks months ago." "That's not what Rachel says," she replied, her mouth forming a thin line. "She says you still owe $15,000. I felt my stomach drop. $15,000? Where was that number coming from? "Mom, that's not right. I can show you the canceled checks. I paid exactly what we calculated, 1/3 of the total bills. Rachel has been keeping the books," my mother said, her tone suggesting the conversation was over. "If she says you owe it, then you owe it." Rachel, my older sister by 3 years. We had never been particularly close, but I had never imagined she would lie about something like this. Rachel was 61, a real estate agent who had done well for herself. She lived in a large house in the suburbs, drove a luxury car, and always seemed to have money for vacations and renovations. I tried to talk to Rachel that day, but she brushed me off, claiming she was too busy with the party. Every time I approached her, she found an excuse to walk away. By the end of the evening, I felt a coldness from my family that I had never experienced before. Over the next few months, things deteriorated rapidly. Family group chats that I had been part of for years suddenly went quiet. When I would post something, no one would respond. Birthday wishes stopped coming. Phone calls went unanswered. I tried everything. I sent my mother copies of all the canceled checks, bank statements, everything proving I had paid my share. She never acknowledged receiving them. I called Rachel repeatedly, leaving voicemail after voicemail asking her to review the numbers with me. She never called back. My wife, Linda, watched me struggle with growing concern. We had been married for 32 years, and she knew how much my family meant to me, despite our occasional differences. "David, something isn't adding up here," she said one evening as we sat in our living room. "Why would Rachel claim you owe money you clearly paid? And why won't anyone even listen to your side?" I had been asking myself the same questions. Linda was 56, with kind brown eyes and hair that had gracefully turned silver at the temples. She had always been my anchor, the steady presence that kept me grounded. "I think Rachel wants something," I finally admitted. "I just don't know what." The answer came 2 weeks before I received that devastating text message. I found out through a cousin who still talked to me that Rachel was pushing my mother to sell the family home. It was a beautiful property on 2 acres, worth a considerable amount of money. My parents had bought it 40 years ago, and it held countless memories. According to my cousin, Rachel had been telling my mother that the house was too much for her to maintain, that she should sell it and move into a retirement community. Rachel had even lined up a buyer, someone she knew through her real estate connections. She stood to make a significant commission on the sale. But there was a problem. My father's will had stipulated that if the house was sold, the proceeds were to be divided equally among all the children. That meant Rachel, myself, and our younger brother Thomas would each get 1/3. Unless, of course, one of the children was somehow disqualified from the inheritance. I realized with growing horror what Rachel was doing. By claiming I still owed money to the estate, by turning the family against me, she was positioning herself to argue that I should forfeit my share of the house proceeds. If she could get me officially cut out of the family, she could potentially claim my third for herself, or at worst, split it with Thomas. The amount of money involved was substantial. Easily over $300,000 for my share alone. When I tried to explain this to my mother, she wouldn't listen. She had always favored Rachel, the successful businesswoman, over me, the high school teacher who had chosen a modest life of service over financial gain. To my mother, Rachel's success meant Rachel must be right. And then came that text message. I sat at my kitchen table staring at those words, feeling something crack inside my chest. The auto payments my mother referenced were several bills I had set up to help her out. Her internet, her cell phone, and a monthly grocery delivery service. After my father died, she had struggled with managing these things, so I had taken them over. It was my way of caring for her from a distance, since I lived 2 hours away. Now she was using it as leverage, as if my being cut from the family was a mutual business decision we had reached together. Linda found me still sitting there an hour later, the coffee long cold, my phone still in my hand. "David?" she said softly, touching my shoulder. "What's wrong?" I showed her the message. I watched her face change as she read it, saw the anger flash in her eyes. "This is cruel," she said. "This is unbelievably cruel. I need to cancel those payments," I said numbly. She asked me to. "David, wait. Think about this for a moment." But I was already logging into my accounts, methodically canceling each automatic payment. If I wasn't family anymore, then I certainly wasn't going to keep paying for services I apparently had no obligation to provide. As I worked, something strange happened. The fog of hurt and confusion began to lift. In its place came a cold, clear anger, but underneath that, something else. Relief. I had spent 6 months trying to prove myself to people who had already decided I was guilty. I had exhausted myself trying to repair relationships with family members who had cut me off without even hearing my side. I had been carrying the weight of their judgment, their coldness, their rejection. And now it was over. They had made it official. I was no longer part of the family, which meant I was free. "I'm done," I said to Linda, logging out of the last account. "I'm done fighting. I'm done explaining. I'm done begging them to believe me." Linda knelt beside my chair, taking my hands in hers. "I'm sorry you're going through this. I'm so sorry." "Don't be," I said, and I was surprised to find I meant it. This is probably the kindest thing they could have done for me. Over the next few weeks, I discovered what it meant to truly let go. I stopped checking my phone for messages from family members. I stopped rehearsing explanations in my head. I stopped hoping that someone would finally believe me. Instead, I focused on what I had. Linda, whose love had never wavered. My 2 daughters, Emily and Sarah, both in their late 20s, who had watched the family drama unfold with disgust and had firmly taken my side. My small circle of close friends. My students at the high school where I taught history. I also started asking questions about the family, finances that I had never thought to ask before. I requested copies of all the medical bills from my father's illness. I hired a lawyer to review the estate documents. What I found shocked me. Rachel had been inflating the bills. She had included expenses that had nothing to do with my father's medical care. There were charges for her own mother's medical appointments, for prescriptions that had never been filled, even for a home renovation that she had claimed was a necessary medical modification, but was actually just a kitchen UPG. The real amount I should have paid was about half of what she had claimed, which meant I had actually overpaid by several $1,000s. But more than that, I discovered that Rachel had been systematically manipulating the estate for years. She had convinced my mother to make her the executor of my father's will, and then had used that position to redirect funds and assets. My lawyer was clear about what I could do. I could fight it. I could take Rachel and potentially my mother to court. I had the evidence to prove fraud. I would likely win. I thought about it for exactly one day. Then I told my lawyer to drop it. "You're sure?" he asked, clearly surprised. "We're talking about a lot of money here, and what she did was illegal." "I'm sure," I said. "What would I win? Money?" "I'd also guarantee that the family rift became permanent and public. My mother is 79 years old. Do I really want her final years consumed by a legal battle with her children?" "That's very generous of you," the lawyer said. "It's not generosity," I replied. "It's self-preservation. I've spent 6 months letting this consume me. If I pursue this legally, it will consume years. I won't do that to myself or to Linda. But I did do one thing. I wrote a letter, not to my mother or Rachel, but to my brother Thomas. Thomas was 53, the baby of the family. He had always been the peacemaker, the one who stayed out of conflicts. He hadn't participated in cutting me off, but he hadn't defended me either. He had simply gone silent. In the letter, I laid out everything I had discovered. I included copies of the evidence. I didn't ask him to do anything with the information. I just wanted one person in my family to know the truth. I mailed it on a Tuesday and tried not to think about it. 3 weeks later, Thomas called. "David, I need to see you," he said, his voice strange. "Can I see to your house?" He arrived on a Saturday morning, looking tired and older than I remembered. We sat in my backyard, where the late summer flowers Linda had planted were still blooming. "I did what you asked," Thomas said without preamble. "I looked into the finances. You were right about everything. Rachel has been lying for years." "I know." "I confronted her," Thomas continued. "She denied it at first, but when I showed her the evidence, she broke down. David, she's in serious financial trouble. Her real estate business is failing. She's been using Mom's money to cover her own debts." I felt no satisfaction in being right, only a deep sadness. "The house sale," I said. "She needs the commission. More than that. She was planning to convince Mom to give her a loan from the sale proceeds, a loan she would never repay." We sat in silence for a while, listening to the birds. "I told Mom everything," Thomas finally said. "She didn't want to believe it at first. But I had the bank statements, the fake bills, everything. She couldn't deny it. How is she?" "Devastated, angry. She wants to talk to you." "No," I said immediately. Thomas looked at me in surprise. "David, she knows she was wrong. She wants to apologize. I'm sure she does. But I'm not ready. Maybe I never will be. But she's our mother. She sent me a text message telling me I was no longer part of the family," I said quietly. "She didn't call. She didn't meet with me in person. She didn't give me a chance to defend myself. She sent a text message, Thomas, like I was a subscription service she was canceling." Thomas winced. "That was cruel." "I know it was. It was more than cruel. It was final. She made a choice about who to believe, and it wasn't me. That's her right, but it's also mine to protect myself from people who can do that to me, even if they're family." "People make mistakes, David. This wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting a birthday or saying something thoughtless. This was a deliberate, sustained campaign to exclude me. And the only reason anyone is apologizing now is because you found proof I was telling the truth. What if you hadn't looked? Would anyone have ever believed me? Thomas had no answer for that. What about Rachel? I asked. She's in therapy, and she's paying back everything she took. I'm making sure of it. Good. Are you going to forgive her? Someday, maybe. For my own peace of mind, not for hers. But trust her again? Have a relationship with her? No, that's gone. Thomas stayed for lunch. Linda made her famous chicken salad, and we talked about other things, lighter things. His kids, my daughters, the funny things that happened at work. It was good to see him, to realize that not everything had been lost. As he was leaving, he turned back. Mom really does want to talk to you. Just think about it, okay? I didn't promise anything. That night, I lay in bed next to Linda, staring at the ceiling. Do you think I'm being too hard on them? I asked. I think you're protecting yourself, she said. There's nothing wrong with that. I keep thinking about when I was a kid. Mom wasn't perfect, but she was there. She loved us. Or at least I thought she did. I'm sure she did love you. Maybe she still does. But love isn't enough if someone can turn against you that completely without even giving you a chance to explain yourself. I thought family was supposed to be forever. Family is the people who show up for you, Linda said. Sometimes that's the people you're related to. Sometimes it's the people you choose. 3 months passed. Fall turned to winter. I threw myself into my teaching, into my marriage, into my friendships. I started volunteering at a local community center, teaching history classes to seniors. I found that helping others learn and grow filled something in me that had been empty. My daughters visited often. Emily was planning her wedding, and she had deliberately not invited Rachel or my mother. They don't get to be part of my happy moments when they tried to ruin yours, she said firmly. Sarah was applying to graduate schools, and she would sit at our kitchen table for hours, working on her essays while I graded papers beside her. These were my people. This was my family. Then, 2 weeks before Christmas, I got a call from Thomas. David, Mom's in the hospital. She had a stroke. The words hit me like a physical blow. Is she okay? She's stable, but it was serious. The doctors say the next few days are critical. I'll be there tomorrow. Linda looked at me in surprise when I hung up. You're going? She's my mother, I said simply. The drive to the hospital felt longer than the actual 2 hours it took. I kept thinking about that text message, about the months of silence, about all the hurt. But I also thought about the woman who had taught me to tie my shoes, who had cheered at my baseball games, who had cried at my wedding. People are complicated, families are complicated, and sometimes love and hurt exist in the same space, refusing to cancel each other out. My mother was in ICU when I arrived. She looked small in the hospital bed, fragile in a way I had never seen her before. Thomas was there, and to my surprise, so was Rachel. Rachel looked up when I entered, and I saw genuine fear in her eyes. David, I'm so sorry. About everything. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I know, I said. Thomas told me, can you forgive me? I looked at this woman who had been willing to destroy me for money. I don't know, probably not anytime soon. But I don't hate you, if that helps. It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was the honest one. My mother woke up an hour later. Our eyes found mine, and tears started rolling down her cheeks. David, she whispered. I went to her bedside. I'm here, Mom. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know. I should have listened. I should have believed you. I took her hand. It felt fragile, the bones prominent under papery skin. Yeah, you should have. Can you forgive me? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I can forgive you for being fooled by Rachel. I can forgive you for making a mistake. But what I can't forget is how easy it was for you to cut me out. That's going to take time, Mom. A lot of time. She nodded, still crying. I understand. I stayed at the hospital for 3 days while my mother stabilized. Rachel and I existed in a state of cold civility. We didn't argue, but we didn't connect either. That bridge had burned, and neither of us seemed interested in rebuilding it. Thomas and I, though, we found something. Not the closeness we had as kids, but a new kind of relationship built on honesty. He had proven himself when it mattered, and that meant something. My mother recovered slowly. The stroke had affected her left side, and she needed extensive rehabilitation. I visited once a week, regular as clockwork, but I didn't resume the financial support I had been providing. That felt like a boundary I needed to maintain. We talked, my mother and I, in those weekly visits. Real talks, not the surface conversations we had had for years. She told me about her fears, about how she had felt lost after my father died, about how Rachel had seemed so confident and capable that it was easier to believe her than to face the possibility that she might be lying. I didn't want to think I had raised someone who could be that dishonest, she admitted. It was easier to believe you were the problem. It wasn't a good reason, but it was an honest one. Months passed. Winter gave way to spring. Emily got married in a beautiful outdoor ceremony, surrounded by the people who truly loved her. My mother was there, in a wheelchair, but there. Rachel was not. Life moved forward as it always does. I didn't forget what had happened, but I stopped letting it define me. The anger faded, replaced by something more like acceptance. This was my family, messy and broken and imperfect. I could choose how much of my life to share with them, and that choice belonged to me alone. One Sunday morning, nearly a year after that text message, I was having coffee with Linda when my phone rang. It was Thomas. David, I wanted to let you know, Mom's selling the house. My first reaction was surprisingly neutral. Okay, she wants to split the proceeds 3 ways. Like Dad's will said, she asked me to tell you that your share will be deposited directly into your account. No strings attached. Tell her thank you. She also wanted me to tell you something else. She's giving Rachel's share directly to Rachel's creditors. Every penny. Rachel won't see any of it. I was quiet for a moment. That seems harsh. Mom said Rachel made her choice. Now she has to live with the consequences. After we hung up, Linda asked what I was thinking. I'm thinking that maybe my mother did learn something after all. Are you happy about what she's doing to Rachel? No, I said honestly. I don't take any pleasure in Rachel's suffering. But I understand why Mom is doing it. Actions have consequences. The money arrived in my account 3 months later. It was more than I had expected. Linda and I talked about what to do with it. We could finally take that trip to Europe you've always wanted, she suggested. Or we could help Emily and her husband with their down payment on a house, or put it towards Sarah's graduate school. In the end, we did all 3. We split the money carefully, thoughtfully, keeping juice. Tea enough for ourselves, while helping our daughters build their lives. It felt right, using what came from my father to invest in the next generation. I also set aside a portion for something else. I established a scholarship fund at my high school for students from difficult family situations. Kids who needed to know that sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. 2 years after that text message, I was sitting in my backyard on a warm summer evening when my mother called. David, I'm calling to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Okay, do you think we'll ever get back what we had, our relationship? I looked at the flowers Linda had planted, at the home we had built together, at the life I had created despite everything. No, Mom, I don't think we will, I heard her breath catch. I was afraid you'd say that, but that doesn't mean we can't have something different, something new. It won't be what it was, but it might be something real. I'd like that, she said softly. If you're willing to try, I'm willing to try. We talked for an hour that night. Really talked. We didn't solve everything. We didn't erase the past. But we took a small step forward, and sometimes that's all you can do. Rachel, I've seen once since everything happened. It was at a family funeral, awkward and brief. She's working as a receptionist now, rebuilding her life from the ground up. She tried to approach me, but I wasn't ready. Maybe someday I will be. Or maybe I won't. I'm at peace with either outcome. Thomas and I have grown closer. He and his wife visit regularly, and our families have started creating new traditions together. He told me once that what happened taught him something important about standing up for what's right, even when it's family. As for that text message, I've never deleted it. It sits in my phone. A reminder of the worst moment in my relationship with my family, but also a marker of when I learned to truly value myself. Because here's what I learned from all of this. Family isn't defined by blood or obligation. It's defined by who shows up, who believes in you, who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. I lost family members through this experience, it's true. But I also discovered who my real family was. Linda, my daughters, Thomas, my friends, my students, the community I've built around myself. These are the people who matter. These are the people who deserve my time, my energy, my love. And as for the ones who decided I was no longer part of the family, I've made peace with their choice. Because the truth is, they freed me to build something better. I'm 58 years old, and I finally understand what family really means. It took a devastating text message and a year of pain to learn it, but some lessons are worth the cost. I'm at peace now. Real peace. And that's worth more than any inheritance, any family name, any obligation. I'm free. And I've never been happier. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about life, family, and finding peace in unexpected places. And please, leave a comment below telling me about your own experiences with family. Your story matters, and I'd love to hear it. Thank you for listening.